want one to pick up where you don't have to hold it here, where you have to hold it here, that you could hold it.
Right, better one.
Oh, I only have one thing to say. Shocking. Here you go. We're on. There. Oh, waiting for Dan.
Ready? Everybody ready?
No changes in the
All
agenda,
right.
right, Terry?
At this time, good evening, everyone. This time, I'm going to open the meeting with a short prayer and a salute to our flag. Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all of our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication.
Mayor, take notice that this council meeting of the Marion Borough Council being held on the 23rd day of March 2015 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Kilpatrick. McGill.
Here.
Melendez.
Here.
Novak.
Here.
Rittenhouse.
Here. Are there any prior minutes?
No minutes this week, Mayor.
Okay, then we'll go right to the presentations.
Yes.
Milda Rosa?
Yes.
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me.
You know what, Milda? It might be better in the center because that way you'll be on the television.
Oh, really?
All right? Over there, we'll only hear your voice.
Okay.
Right, so as you present it to the governing body, you can turn and show the audience. All right?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Terry, you want to give Milda a microphone? Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melda Rosa, and I'm a community educator for a nonprofit organization here in the state of New Jersey called New Jersey Citizen Action. My job, I'm doing outreach for victims of Hurricane Sandy. Even though it's been 2.5 years since this natural disaster, we're still dealing with the aftermath. And I'm just here this evening to share with the city council member and the residents of Sayreville that there's still 2 programs available for victims of Sandy. 2 rentals assistance, one for homeowners and one for tenants. The homeowners just opened on March 16th, so they're still taking application. And the tenants rental assistance will be, the deadline will be April 6th. So this is the reason that I'm here this evening, so I could share with you guys some flyers and posters.
Okay,
So,
Milda, is this, is this with the county government, the state government?
this is, yeah, it's the Christie administration. Yes,
Okay.
it's the state programs.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just doing the outreach for those programs.
Okay.
I'm just spreading the words. Like I said, there's 2 programs available, one for homeowners, one for renters. I brought flyers and posters, and I would like to leave that with you guys this
if you
evening.
leave it with the clerk, please. If you want to read the copy of the poster, that would be fine.
Sure, it's still need assistance to recover from Sandy. Housing assistance may be available to you. They speak 11 languages. They could go directly to the website. It's www.readnewjerseystrong.org to learn more about these 2 programs. They could fill out the application right online as well.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
And if you give that to Terry, our clerk, we will put it on our borough website and our borough television station.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a good evening.
Okay, thank you, Milda.
Yep. And I'll pick them up. Thank you.
We have a presentation from the Main Street Bypass Committee. If you would come up, please. You need to use the mic.
Gotta use the mic.
Darren.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Jay. I'm the Chairman, Paul Capagna, of the Main Street Bypass Committee. It's an advisory committee on the road. And I would like to share with you some of the findings that we've come across over the last few months of discussing the project, some of the options that we see that are on the table, and some of the recommendations that we have. I'm going to skip the vision statement, but let's go to the project as a whole. The project as a whole is going to go from Sayreville Boulevard all the way down to Chevalier. And in between, it will have connections at Kimball East, Kimball West. It'll have connections by Town Lake. Phase 1 of the project currently goes from Sayreville Boulevard by Town Lake and ends at Kimball Drive East in the Main Street development. And that phase has been approved by the DEP. Okay. How did we get here? We did DEP submission on October 16, 2009. That submission was rejected on 9/28/2010. We did a second submission 9/26/2013, and finally it was approved on 4/10/2014.
A question for the public. It is my understanding that this is the normal interaction with the DEP on something like this. Jay, I think you stated that several times.
That's correct, Mayor. This one was a little different. We had an appeal. After the original rejection, the borough filed an appeal. That was at the state, back and forth through the appeal process. And finally, we met with them, and they suggested resubmitting the application, which we did, and we eventually received the approval.
Please continue.
All right, so now that Phase 1 is approved, we have some available options on the table. We could proceed with Phase 1 construction, and that would be by Sayreville Boulevard by Town Lake to Kimball Drive East. We could submit DEP applications for Phase 2. We could decide to do Phase 2 and 3 at the same time. We also, because of some of the traffic issues, parking issues, et cetera, with Kimball Drive East, could do a redesign ending at Kimball Drive West. We could request that the county consider installing a traffic light on Main Street and Kimball Drive East to deal with some of the traffic situations that we have there. And we could also consider removing the gate at Boomhurst and Sayreville Boulevard to allow better egress to the community, Sheffield Mews, et cetera. And those are some of the available options that we have.
Do you have recommendations?
We do have some recommendations. Let's just talk real quick about Phase 2. So Phase 2 of the project goes from Kimball Drive East and comes out on Crosman. Phase 2 of the project, in my opinion, I think Jay agrees with me, is the most difficult part of the project. Correct, Jay?
That's correct. That involves constructing a bridge to cross over Birch Creek. So there's a lot of property you have to acquire from the steel mill, and also permits you have to obtain from the state. So that's going to be a difficult permit to obtain.
Yeah, because of the difficulty with Phase 2, we think we have some recommendations, and we think, number one, we should petition the county to install traffic light at Kimball Drive East and Main Street. There have been a few accidents at that intersection, and it also is a situation trying to get out.
Just tip it up sometimes.
Bang it.
Technology.
You there? Okay. In the mornings, it's very difficult to come out back onto Main Street. I personally have seen school buses trying to make that left-hand turn out of Kimball Drive East to get on Main Street, and have seen the school bus across both lanes waiting for somebody to let them out. So we think that no matter what, installing a traffic light there is a good recommendation. We also think that opening up Boomhurst and Sayreville Boulevard is another good recommendation to allow better egress into the community. Right now, Wilkshire is the only avenue for emergency personnel. I don't know if you remember, there was an accident on Main Street a couple years ago where somebody had a telephone pole, and they basically shut down. There was no way in or out of that community outside of Wilkshire.
Bless you.
Thank you.
We also believe, because Phase 2 is the most difficult part of the entire project, we believe that we should have engineering plans drawn up for Phase 2, and we should submit those to the DEP. And those are our recommendations.
Are there any questions from the governing body?
Just a comment. You are aware that it should help. It definitely won't be everything. That there will be a light put up. Matter of fact, going out to bid in April, right?
The county is currently reviewing the revised plans. Once they approve it, then it's going to go to bid. So
Which is going to be White Oaks and Main Street, so it should at least create a little break in traffic. It won't be directly at that, but it'll make it a little bit better. There'll be a break.
I'm sure.
I just wanted you to know that, just in case you
I
wanted to.
appreciate that, and I'm sure at some point or another be back and can give you an update whether or not, that change has impacted the community at all in a beneficial way.
Are there any other questions from the governing body?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question. It might not be specifically to the Main Street Bypass Committee, but I was just curious on where we are with the funding on the project. I know I got some preliminary numbers a couple weeks ago, but what we were really...
Jay, do you have?
Mayor, initially the borough received a $10 million grant from the state to construct the roadway. I think we received only a portion of that, and the state stopped issuing funds to the borough because of the progress, because of the delays with the state getting permits. I think Wayne could probably give specifics as to how much we've received. I think it was out of 4 of the 10 we received.
We've received $4 million out of the $10 million so far.
So I saw that we only got $2 million. I thought we only got $2 million of that.
No, we got
Do you know how much we expended of that money so far?
almost $2 million. I'd say about $1.7 million. Yeah, about $1.7 million. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes,
Mayor,
if you don't mind. Oh, Arthur, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave. Just one comment on Bamehurst. Everybody thinks that there's a gate there. There's not a gate there. There's a guardrail, an iron guardrail that no emergency vehicles can get through. So what we're doing is we're leaving Sheffield Town at the mercy of one entrance and exit. And I think that's something that we have to look at sooner than later, just for the protection of the residents who live not only in Sheffield Town, but Sheffield Mews, because if something does happen out at Main Street, there's no way anybody can get in, any emergency vehicles at all. And the guardrail goes completely across the road as well as the side of the road, so you can't even get around it. And then behind it, there's a mound.
Arthur, while you have the microphone, will you explain to the public the composition of the bypass committee?
Composition was made up, there's 2 residents from Modulewski, 2 residents from Main Street Townhouses. The people who were on from Sheffield have resigned over the years, and we've put out feelers and nobody else has come forth. I've been at the meetings just as a facilitator and answer any questions I can. Really, the authority on everything has been Jay, who has the intimate knowledge of everything that's going on with the bypass.
Jay, if I may, quick question for you. How has this plan changed from the original conception plan where we got the funding? Has it changed?
There is one change on the second phase with the tie-in on Crossman Road. Originally, it was going to run straight through. The bypass road was going to be kind of parallel to Main Street. What the bypass committee recommended a few years ago was that Crossman Road and the bypass form a T intersection. That way the bulk of the traffic would be on Crossman as opposed to on the bypass road. But aside from that, the concept has remained the same.
So for almost $2 million, we had one change.
Well, the money was spent mainly on, you had probably $200,000 or $300,000 of that was just on permit fees going back and forth with the different outside agencies. And even though you received DEP approval, you still have other agencies that still have to review and approve Phase 1, MCUA, Freehold Soil, and the Army Corps of Engineers. Those permits are still pending. So before you can start any type of construction, those 3 agencies would have to at least approve the Phase 1 portion of the project.
Would you have any idea what kind of time frame that would entail?
Well, they were put on hold because of the DEP. Once the DEP denied the application, the other agencies put everything on hold, so it's been reactivated. They're in the process. We've been meeting with MCUA because the road is going to be built directly on top of their force main, so they have concerns with the added weight because you have to build up the roadway over their force main. So there's some engineering issues that we're working with them. The other agencies, Army Corps and Freehold Soil, are currently reviewing. I would anticipate Freehold Soil probably in the next month will approve everything. Army Corps has been difficult to get status reports for them, but they do have it and they are reviewing it.
In the past, Army Corps, how long does it take? Is it like
It
going for God?
could be 6 months to a year. It's difficult to obtain Army Corps permit.
You know, Mayor, if I also might, I know that a year and a half ago we met with the Army Corps, maybe a it's got to be a year and a half, almost 2 years ago.
That was DEP, Mike, and
I
that's,
thought it was the Army Corps also because they had offices up there, and they were favorable with respect to this. But it was a while ago. It does take some time there.
yeah, we went to Trenton to meet with the DEP on the approval of their
Right.
permits, and as a result of that, we were able to resubmit the application and eventually get the approval.
Are there any other questions or comments on the
Mayor, if you don't
Main
mind.
Street? Council President?
How long has the bypass committee been in effect?
I believe it goes back all the way till 2009, Jay?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Yeah, I've only been on the committee now for about, I'd say about a year.
I know you gentlemen work very hard on this, and especially since the meetings are held in the evening, it takes a lot of time out of your day. When do you anticipate any type of something shovel-ready? When do you think bypass will start?
I mean, it really all comes down to what the council takes as the recommendation on how to proceed from here.
And when would we get that?
It's up to the governing body.
Yeah, it's
This
up to
is
the
an
governing body
advisory,
to make a decision.
group
Yeah.
Made up of
And-
area residents who are directly impacted by the
And
by the
rightfully so.
road.
I'm very happy it's area residents, but that's almost, you were given $2 million to start, I'm sorry, $4 million to start?
They weren't given any, the governing body was
Hold
given
on,
the
hold on,
money.
hold on. You were given 4 minutes to start?
They weren't given any money.
How much money has been spent so far?
I believe what he's saying is 2 million, but it wasn't up to us to make the decision ultimately how the money was spent.
Who made that decision?
The
Governing body.
Okay. When the governing body made that, did they know that they were getting Thursday night meetings?
I think it's an advisory committee based on the impact of
Yeah. Oh, no, I think you're doing a great
impact.
job.
Yeah,
I think you're doing a
no.
great job.
It's not a committee that will ultimately make the decisions on how the road is designed, how the road
Yeah.
is built. I think the committee that we're in is basically, it's concern of how the road may impact communities
Yeah.
and give just recommendations, but ultimately has no power in what will happen or how it will happen.
Yeah, because you know much more than I do about this, but without the bypass and the point coming, the streets are going to be clogged.
Listen,
Choked.
I absolutely 100% agree with that. I think in my personal opinion, but the bypass needs to be as a whole as opposed to sections. If it doesn't go from one end of town to the other, there's no point.
There's no point to it, yes. No,
Correct.
we're not looking for roads
there-
to nowhere.
There is point. I mean, it gives an access, a rear access to all these residential areas on that Phase 1 that would not have it already. Right now, they have no way of getting out some of these streets. The first phase would give that way out. If
Correct.
something happened, if an accident happened at the end of Bamehurst, they would have a back way out if we went with that plan with removing the guardrail and having Phase 1 available. Further down the road, the residents have the same issues. I think getting Phase 1 is important to start it up and let's get going on it. I mean, this was 2007, the money was allotted. With 2015, we had 2 major incidents this year alone that clogged up every road in our town. It's something that we need to move forward on now, I believe.
I'm sorry.
No.
Did you?
I spoke once already.
I just have a question. As I'm looking at these numbers, I see 5 years. You mentioned 2007, Dan. I'm going with the 2009 number, so unless you know of 2007.
2007 was the ordinance when we received the money for first $2 million from the state.
Okay, so that's going to extend this timeline from the 5 years even further back. So my question is, okay, from 2007 all the way till current, you're looking at a $2 million expenditure, but we don't have anything really to stick a flag in yet. I wanted to know, you meet every month, do we get bypass committee meetings? Minutes, I'm sorry.
Yes, there are meetings.
I'm
Minutes.
sorry, minutes.
Minutes are maintained, agendas are prepared. Yes.
Okay, do we receive those minutes here? Because I don't recall seeing any since I came on board here.
Recently, I only received one set of minutes.
Only one set of minutes.
That's recently.
That's recently. So I don't know how anybody else feels here, but when I see a project that has taken a significant amount of time at a significant cost, with money obviously going to continue to dwindle as we move forward with, potentially Phase 1, Phase 2, I would like to see those minutes to see where we stand so that progress continues to move.
Sure.
Hold on, just so everyone understands, this was started because when this originally began, the neighborhoods in the area, whether it was Main Street Townhome, the Horseshoe Road neighborhood, the Sheffield, Park Village, there was great concern. So I started the advisory committee, and let me capitalize, italicize, and underline the word advisory. They are a group of area residents who are directly impacted by this bypass road. I created it so that they would have impact and input over how this was designed. They are not leading the bypass road. They have no legal authority over it. They, as concerned homeowners of the area that will be affected by it, they have input into the process. The only people with any control on this Main Street bypass is the governing body, not the bypass committee. There's a very big mistake being made up here. They do not control the money, they do not spend the money, they do not direct the money. They are the people who live in that area who will be directly impacted, and it is their way of having input into how it will be constructed, which roads will be connected, and that is their function. The rest of it is not their function. I'm very grateful that they have taken the time, the interest, and the dedication. This is a lot of work that they do. And Arthur, I want to thank you for being the facilitator here. They have put, it's unimaginable the amount of time that they put in here, but they don't control the dime.
So
They
Mayor-
do not control a dime.
Mayor, are you just saying this in reference to my question to have minutes?
No, you can have all the minutes you want. You know, there's no big secret about that. But there's a misunderstanding here about what their function is. And their function is, they live there. This is really going to affect them. This is going to impact them. And they want to have a say in it. And that's why I formed it. As far as saying it's going to go this way, that way, they don't have anything, any power with that. That's strictly up here with the governing body, with the 6 council people. So to say to them, what have you done with our money? They haven't done anything with it. We have done something with it. We have spent it, not them.
That's fine, that's fair. I also want to say that I'm very grateful for anybody that volunteers. And I actually lived in Main Street Townhomes for a number of years on Delicat Lane. Loved my time there, and I only moved a little bit down the road. So I'm right off of right on Wick Drive. So this definitely impacts me. I have a vested interest in this bypass as well. My only question was, and I wasn't saying that these individuals were the ones that were spending this money. You mentioned advisory committee. I think our rec is an advisory committee also. And they still help to guide decisions for the council, give us some information, let us make informed decisions. So I wasn't implying
Well,
that they're the ones.
that's why Arthur arranged for them to make a presentation tonight.
I think that's great that you did that, Arthur. I wish that we had this presentation a little bit earlier, considering this was something started 2007, 2009. But I'm grateful that you're here today, and I appreciate the
Well, this is
presentation.
the
They did
first
have
time.
presentations, but the former chairperson passed away.
Vicki, and I have
that
no
put-
problem with minutes, getting you minutes, so let us
Thank
know
you.
And
the
you
best
did
procedure to
receive
do
the
that,
last
and we'll
minutes
handle
on Friday in your
That's-
packet.
Are there any other
Thank you.
questions or
Thank you.
comments?
Yes, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
Again, how long have you been on bypass?
I personally have been on it for about a year, somewhere around
And
there.
you're a volunteer.
Volunteer, correct.
Thank you very much. It's,
Mary, go
that's
ahead.
wonderful that you do that kind of thing because volunteerism is a tough thing to find these days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary.
I just want to say I appreciate volunteerism in this town. We happen to have we're very lucky in this town to have the amount of volunteers we do. I know that in the past, was my understanding that the Main Street Committee did not want this through. But I think everybody has learned, sadly, what's been happening over the past few years, that any tiny thing that goes on in town, the whole town gets tied up for hours. I couldn't even get out of my driveway. I happen to live on Scarlet Drive, and that's where they were directing the traffic through. This would be the road where the residents would be alleviated, when the road that most of the passerbys use, which is Main Street, just trying to get through town, this is really going to help the residents most of all, and as a volunteer first aider, it's really going to help us, because there are just times where if the traffic gets tied up at all, we even have difficulty getting there with an ambulance. So wonderful presentation, and I hope we just march forward now. We're doing whatever we have to do to get this completed so that all the residents in town will, have this option. I'm all for a lot of options.
Mary, just a clarification on that. Main Street Committee, even before I was involved with it, had always recommended the bypass. What you heard was that if it only went to Kimball Drive East, their concern was that the Phase 2 and 3 were not going to be done. The Board of Education had moved bus stops into Main Street townhomes, and their concern was the traffic coming through with children, with trucks, which the Police Department and Planning Board had said could go on the Main Street bypass. Then they would be going on Kimball Drive East. That's where the concern, and some people took that to say they were against it. They were never against it. They always approved it.
Well,
There's never been a vote not to, for them to recommend that.
I'm not talking about recently. I'm talking about years ago, what Mr. Kaiserman was on there. And
But,
he was
yeah, you're
a
right.
friend, and
Yeah,
he was
didn't
very
want,
much
right.
against it.
Right, but
And I guess that's where I
the
was getting
total
my
committee.
information from.
But I do think what we can take out of tonight is I think we have to seriously look at Bainhurst, because if we're so concerned about Sheffield Town, right now, and for the last whatever number of years, and the road is back there. Sayreville Boulevard is there. It's paved. We're not going to make it. That road is existing, except for the barrier that blocks people getting to that road. I took a ride on my way to the council meeting tonight. I rode to the end of the road just to make sure that it was there.
Jay, do you know why that, was it just never opened?
Well, this goes back to the 1980s. When Sheffield Town originally was approved, the original approval required a connection of Sayreville Boulevard to Bainhurst Avenue. Bainhurst Avenue residents came to the mayor and council and said, we don't want the road open, we're concerned about additional traffic. So at that point, the council decided to go through, and initially it was going to be a gate to have for emergency access, and eventually that turned into a barrier. But it was basically objections by the residents of Bainhurst Avenue.
Okay, but would it entail a lot of money to open it now, or no?
It would not, and you can do it, if you don't want to open it, you can just put that emergency gate in. That way, in case of emergencies, your fire officials and first aiders can go through and access it to provide an opening to let Sayreville Boulevard be used in case there's a problem on Main Street.
But there wouldn't be any big problem with just opening it? Okay, thank you.
Jay, what
Just for the general public, let me go over this thing. So the money was received in a grant in 2009. 2007. It took several years to put together a DEP submission, which was submitted on October 16, 2009. A little bit, 13 months later, or just about 12 months later, actually, it was the initial submission was rejected by the DEP on September of 2010. So 3 years later, it was resubmitted after, I guess, numerous negotiations, Jay?
Correct.
And rewriting and, trying to find out what the DEP would want in order to make it work. So it was submitted September 6, 2013, and then it was March 10th of 2014 that we received, or that the borough received approval for this phase. Then the borough engineer needed to speak with the Army Corps and the MCUA, and what was the third?
Freehold soil conservation.
This is, when we built the boat ramp, it was a very arduous process requiring many applications, many rejections, and it's not uncommon because there's so many wetlands involved, or the crossing of wetlands. But again, to reiterate, the Main Street Bypass Committee is an advisory committee that I put together of concerned area residents that this road would directly impact themselves, their lifestyles, their homes. And they wanted a voice in it, and this gave it to them. So they spend, like I said, a great deal of time studying this, looking at it, and once or twice a year, they'll make a presentation to the mayor and council on what they would like. They then go back to their neighbors, their homeowners association for more input. It's not a quick process. Are there any other questions or comments?
I just have one. How far back do you go with the presentations? For someone that,
I'm currently unsure. I could look back in the notes
Nice.
and get back to you,
Just
but
get some history.
this is my first.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Jay, what's our next step?
Well, I think the first thing that has to happen is the 3 outstanding permits. The Army Corps, Freehold Soil, and MCOA have to be obtained. Once they're obtained, the council will have to decide about the construction of Phase 1. Do you want to move forward with the construction of Phase 1? If you do you want to take into consideration the recommendations the committee is making before you go through and construct Phase 1? The other decision is, what do you want to do with Phase 2? The recommendation is the road should not stop at Kimball East. It should be extended at least to Crossman Road. Eventually, it'll be extended to the National Ed property, but because that is in limbo at this point, the design hasn't been finalized on that property, I think there's some concerns with making applications for that third phase. The second phase, you could go through and kind of run a parallel course where you have permits pending at the DEP for the second phase while you're getting your other permits for the first phase. I think that's really what the recommendation is.
Correct.
You need to move forward with that second phase because the committee's, one of their major recommendations is that that road does not stop at Kimball East. It eventually is at least extended until Crossman Road, until the National Ed property develops.
What would be our cost? About approximate our cost for that?
For the
The Phase 2 to Crossman's Road from Kimball East.
the construction cost is probably a couple $1 million construction cost.
Hey, Jay, well, we're looking at what, 10 million on the line? The line number was 10 million?
The initial grant you received was
Yeah,
for 10 million, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much.
Derek?
Do we need to make the decisions tonight, Mayor? At least
Jay?
a week ago?
Do you need direction from the
Well, I think,
council?
Mayor, if the council wants to move forward with the second phase, you typically would have a resolution authorizing that. So if you like, I can prepare that, speak with Wayne, and then get that on
Well,
your
the council would need to decide which option or options they wish to entertain
Well, Mayor, at this point, you're
of the
not,
recommendations.
you're not ready to go to construction with Phase 1. The only thing you could authorize at this point, if you want to move forward with the second phase design and proceeding with those permits, you could do that.
So that we're not stagnant, just waiting here for
Correct.
the
At least
permits
that's
for
moving
Phase
forward
1.
as well, yes.
And at the same time, open Bainhurst. We can do
That's
that right
something
away?
you can probably in-house through your Public Works Department. They
Jay,
probably
would
could
you
do
put
that.
this under your report on the agenda portion?
Sure, I will, Mayor.
Thank you.
Do you want
Make
this
a
in the
motion,
form of a...
can we make a motion to do it tonight?
Yeah.
Listen, you have 5 votes. You can do whatever you want.
Hey, looking at the peanut galleries here.
I'm glad you realized that. Okay, I make a motion that we authorize the engineers to start filing permits for the next phase of this at the same time while we're waiting for the other phase, and open Bainhurst Avenue, and even maybe at the same time see if the county is amenable to another light on Main Street. Let's do it all at once, so we're not held up.
So Mayor, you're suggesting that we open it up totally, Bainhurst, or do the security gate?
I'm for opening it entirely, so people can
Yeah.
drive through and get off, Main Street if they need to. The residents sometimes come out, this way, if they're going in the opposite direction, they can go down, get out that way. It's difficult sometimes for the residents to even make a right out of there and go the other way in the county, down the county road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
McGill,
Yes.
Melendez.
Just a comment on traffic. Do we do any study to make sure that the street currently has the ability to... So I know a kid got hit there last year, and I believe there was not enough speed signs. Maybe you guys can speak to that. Bainhurst? Yeah, I believe there was a... Right. Without asking a question, is there anything else that we should have done, or that streets prepared for additional traffic is my question? Is that something we can look at?
Yeah.
I think maybe you want to refer that to your traffic safety division to have them just comment on whether it's a gate or whether it's a permanent opening at this point.
Okay, do I have to amend my, okay. Bainhurst should be referred to the police department to decide whether we should have an emergency gate or totally open, and that we proceed with all of the phases of these in conjunction with each other.
Well, what we should do is, we should just vote on this motion that's before, and then, I'm sorry,
Speak into the mic.
into the mic.
Thank you.
We need to vote on the motion that's on the table, and then you can make...
Amend it.
Then you make another motion to have it referred to the
I
traffic...
can't hear you, Mike.
To have it referred to the traffic engineer. How did I do? All right.
All right, so continue to vote if you would, please.
So this roll call vote is on the first motion that was made. Councilman Melendez,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Rittenhouse.
Yes.
I can go ahead and amend the motion.
No, make a separate motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we amend the first motion and send the Bainhurst part of it to the traffic safety first to see whether we should have just the emergency gate or open the road entirely.
Second. Roll call.
Councilperson Buchanan,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public portion on ordinance 28415, an ordinance to supplement and amend chapter, what's that, 19 of the Water and Sewer.
14.
Barb?
Yeah, because the other one's right there on the table.
Thank you, Bypass Committee.
Barbara Kilcummins, 22 Schmidt Street. Here I go again. When was the last time we had a sewer increase?
2012.
Okay,
January.
3 years ago. I always bring up, since we're the host to the MCUA, it behooves me why we just have total increases all the time. I definitely wouldn't want to be Class F for the cost of what's going on there, and the cost per cubic feet, per gallon, whatever. My question is, what was the previous amount where you have every homeowner will annually pay $128 a year? What was the previous amount?
Wayne?
I'm
He's looking.
looking for it. You're saying that 128, you're saying the annual?
Yes, the annual fee.
Are you talking Class F, Barbara?
No, this is total.
Okay, in 2012, it was approximately, prior to 2012, it was $100 a year, $25 a quarter is what they estimated.
So we went up
Water and Sewer
$28.
Department.
Speaking to a few people, you mentioned our water rates are based on the amount of the sewer or part of the sewer or vice versa? What is it?
The
water-
sewer is based on water consumption
Consumption,
during the winter months. The 2 quarters,
the sewer rates.
right, as opposed to the entire water consumption for the year. So it doesn't take into effect your summer water consumption, say sprinkling the lawns or people that have
Right.
pools or even washing your car.
Well, see, that was my next question, too. Speaking to someone at the MCUA, they have no differential between domestic sewage that comes out of your toilet versus what's coming through the storm drain. And the storm drain, it
Well,
all
let's say-
goes...
Can you repeat that? There's no...
They said to differentiate part of it, a lot of it is the storm drains that come through, the runoff from water, from whatnot.
That doesn't go to
I don't know about that.
Jerry, can you comment on
I'm not an
that?
engineer, I
My-
can't comment on that.
Well, that's the infiltration inflow. Sometimes if somebody has a sump pump that's connected to the sewer illegally, that goes to MCUA, and
Right.
it's not something that they can measure. So
I
that
think
person's
that's what
not
they
charged
meant,
for it.
exactly,
Right.
that you can't measure that.
That person's not charged for that. I think that's what they're saying.
The storm
I-
sewers
That's-
don't go to the MCUA.
Yeah, that's flow that goes to the MCUA that is not being charged.
No,
for.
it does go to the
I'm
MCUA, it's just
sorry,
that.
I'm sorry.
The reason I'm asking, I mean, I just think it's so hard for some of these people. You may say it's only $28, but a lot of young couples, I mean, the taxes have gone up. They don't have, it's constantly going up. And I just can't see why this increase now.
It's what our assessment is from the MCUA. That's the largest portion of it. There's the debt
We are
service.
the host community, like I say, every year, because I remember all the way back in 1950-some, when Mr. Popowski said we would never pay a sewer charge by being the host community. And it's amazing.
We do receive host community benefits that flow through our current fund budget, and it's
But it's minimal, as far as I'm concerned.
well, it's close to getting close to $2 million, I think.
$2 million annually.
Yeah, so
And part of it.
it's pretty substantial because it's based on the increases in the MCUA budget. For the percentage increase of that every year that the MCUA budget goes up total, that's the increase that we receive in the pilot it's actually a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes, it's not host community.
Well, I know with Sandy, they
Consider
had to
host
make a lot of improvements in the infrastructure and everything else. I mean, they had, the pumps that went down and whatnot. But they did get
Grants.
Grants.
Or state
And-
aid for that, or
yeah.
FEMA aid for that.
Right. It was millions
So
of,
for a
I've been
portion
keeping
of it.
track of that also. I just hope this it had nothing to do with Red Oaks. And I believe now, I mean, what are they, in litigation, they're suing us, or we overcharged them $300,000. They're in the process of selling, and
That is water. That has nothing to do with
the
sewer.
sewer rates.
No, where we lost, we were unsuccessful in litigation with Winding Wood. Hillside Estates had successfully taken us to court and or at least the judgment was that they should be charged as a residential as opposed to at a commercial rate, at a higher rate.
But is Red Oaks correct that we overcharged them by almost $300,000?
Yes, there's a portion of their bill that should not have increased every time there was an increase in the water rates, but the water department had calculated it on the full rate as opposed to just the operating and maintenance portion of the rate.
I see. Okay, just one comment about the bypass. Too many traffic lights. It seems like every 2 blocks we're going to have a traffic light. We have one at Crossman's, we'll have one at Kimball, we'll have one at Park Village, we have one by the seniors, we're having now at Town Lake. Traffic lights create traffic, just remember that. And I thought that was the purpose of doing this bypass. But now putting all the traffic lights on Main Street, I think it's a big mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Are there any other questions or comments on this ordinance? Being no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion. Councilman Rittenhouse. I move the public hearing be closed, the ordinance be adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Second.
Terry, if you would.
Councilpersons Buchanan?
Yes.
Kilpatrick? McGill?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Rittenhouse?
Yes. Okay, I returned ordinance 28015 and 28115, which was basically the Sayreville Day Committee and the Recreation Advisory Committee ordinances unsigned. My single largest objection is each group will allow non-residents to become members. And under the laws of New Jersey, you don't have to physically attend a meeting. You can attend it by phone, as has been demonstrated here. Council Melendez, if his business takes him to South America, has called in, and other council people
have called in from points around the globe. That being said, I think it's a big mistake. It's not, there's no clarity as to what a property owner exactly is. As I said, for less than $100, you can buy one share of DuPont and perhaps be a property owner in Sayreville and live wherever you want to live and never actually physically set foot in the borough. So I have returned them unsigned, and I'll turn it over to Terry. Terry?
I just have one comment. The 28015 is about the Community Day, Sayreville Day Committee. That is a committee formed for the one event that we have every September called Sayreville Day. You're referring to all these other committees. I'm not really understanding, but to be clear...
Do you want me to clear it up? You want me to clarify it for you, Councilman, or you want to state your interpretation of what I said?
I'm trying to understand when you say about chairs and DuPont and those type of...
Ricky, you're a smart guy, so when you play dumb, it doesn't really work
Excuse
well.
me?
But...
Excuse me.
There were two ordinances. The mayor was referring to a portion of it in 280. The other portion of his discussion was referring to ordinance number 281.
Can we have a vote on this, please?
Yes, I make a motion that we override the mayor's veto.
Second.
Roll call?
Who seconded that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Councilpersons Buchanan,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
McGill,
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes, with comment. For all of you, most of you people that were here, you already heard these comments at the last meeting, but for the people that were not here, I will repeat them. I sat here and listed about 7 different committees and/or boards in the town that don't mention that you have to be a resident at all. And there's never been this rush of people from all over the country trying to become part of our committees and take over. We have committees that do require that you are a resident, and yet we have had people that are on those committees that have moved out of town, and we don't have a problem with keeping those people on the committee. Then we have other committees. I wish I had my list with me to give you the exact names, but trust me, there were many of them, that say you can be a member, a voting member if you're a resident, and a non-voting member if you're not. So to have all of this hullabaloo about, all of a sudden we're going to have all of these people rushing in here to take over, running our Community Unity Day, I really think that that's a little bit disingenuous. Thank you.
Councilman Rittenhouse.
No, based on my comments at the last meeting.
Okay, consent agenda resolutions. I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
Mayor,
Come on up, Rich.
Mayor, before we move on, just for clarification, for Councilwoman Novak, that motion to override covered both of those ordinances?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Richie, which Rich is coming up? Richie Yukevich? Come on up. Rich, can you pick up the mic, and I need you to state your name and your position, please?
Richard Yurkevich, 78 Hillside Avenue, President of AFSCME 3527. On the agenda here, you have 2015-87, approve the stipend of $15,000 for the use of Dave Leitner's T4 license in accordance with the Department of Environmental Protection. My issue is, according to the borough ordinance, the director is supposed to maintain a T4 and W3 license prior to appointment, before he's even hired. His qualifications are to fill vacancies for a new position shall be limited to qualified persons who have been interviewed, tested concerning such factors as education, experience, aptitude, knowledge, character, physical and mental fitness. And there is a preference to borough employees. Current treatment, water treatment employees are more qualified. So I want to know why we have to pay $15,000 to Dave Leitner if the director is supposed to maintain a license.
Dan? Mayor, the DEP came down with a ruling that is requiring two entities in the department to hold either a T4 license or to be, I'll call it the director of the department. When Bob Smith was hired, Bob Smith knew that he had to go and apply for his T4 license in order to hold it. Because he has not passed the exam for the T4, and I believe is actually going next month again, the DEP has told us that we need to put someone in place that does have a T4 license, with the second person in command being the director. That is okay according to DEP and their regulations. Because we do not have a T4 licensed person in place with Bob Smith, we need to put someone in place according to DEP. And this will also take place because Bob Smith as a director has a waiver for the second position as a director, but according to DEP, there will be two positions that are needed to have a T4. So we have to have a T4 for two positions, but because Bob Smith is a director, he drops down to the numbered second position as it stands now and is accepted by DEP, as I'll call it, I guess for no other better terms, as a waiver.
That's 17 months now, and he's still in maintain the license?
There was a committee that was put together to hire the new director of the Water and Sewer Department. That committee was myself, Wayne Kronowski, Dave Samuel, and Art Rittenhouse, I believe. We all, is that right now?
No.
I'm sorry, okay, just the three.
No,
Was it
probably Ricky Melendez.
Okay, I'm sorry, that was Ricky,
Councilman
okay, I'm sorry,
Melendez.
Councilman Melendez. We all sat down and discussed the candidates that we had. When we hired this candidate, he assured us that he would go for the continuing education that he needed to get a T4 and applied. He has applied, I believe, twice to get the license. My understanding is that license is a very difficult license to achieve. I believe that he has put in good faith in trying to get that license. I think he's going again next month. And we have all agreed, as far as the committee is concerned, along with mayor and council, that Bob Smith was the best person to head the department at that time and at this time.
My question is, we have borough employees that are qualified for the position. Why weren't they looked at?
They were looked at and they were interviewed, and the committee felt that they were not qualified.
They were not qualified, but they have the license.
Not qualified for the other aspects of the job, not just of the license.
Well, something's wrong here, because it's 17 months already, he still doesn't have the license. That's my issue. If he can't pass it, and he went twice already. If he can't pass the test and he went twice already, what is he still doing here? How could he be more qualified?
Arthur, I would recommend that you review this with your committee and
Yes, I plan to do that, Mayor. And there's also several other issues we want to discuss, to get our water and sewer department going in the best positive manner that there is. I haven't had time to go around and talk to the water and sewer, unfortunately, due to the weather. Each time I was planning on doing it, we had rain, snow, sleet, and different things, but within the next 2 weeks, I will probably be visiting the facilities and working with the committee.
Richie, I will tell you, I mean, I've for the first time in 16 years, I'm having great concerns about labor unrest. I've always believed that you work with your employees in a fair and equitable manner, and you ask for a day's work for a day's pay, and it's always worked out well for 16 years. Now I'm having a great deal of unrest and dissension and dysfunction in the water department, and I'm going to instruct Art and his committee to find out why and what needs to be done, because I think it's getting to the point of no return. I think it's at a very dangerous level, and I can't have that in the borough. This is a vital service. I always found the employees put in a day's work for a day's pay. They were dedicated to it, and I do not like what's going on now. I don't like the haphazard way and the way the department is being run, and it's going to get rectified.
All right, because, we'd never had any issues till Bob Smith came, just so you know that. There was never agreements ever filed there. That director, Mr. Triolo, would call me if there was any issues, and that was very rarely.
Correct. Thanks, Rich. Anybody else have any issues?
Richard Bauman, 14 Green Hill Avenue, Harlan, on 2015-84, authorizing the appointment of David Leitner, Guy Targonski, and Alan Hayes entitled as senior water treatment plant operators. I was wondering what license do they have?
Dan?
Rich, I'm going to have to get back to you on exactly what licenses. I don't have it.
Well, we know that Dave Leitner has a T4, right?
I don't have their license.
Well, it's Resolution 2015-87. We're paying a stipend of $15,000 to David Leitner toward a T4 license. So obviously we know he has a T4, right? Yes?
Obviously,
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Leitner
you.
has a T4.
Now, this 15,000 stipend, is that yearly, bi-yearly, monthly,
Annual,
annual? Once a year?
paid on a monthly basis.
All right, thank you. And I know Mr. Yukevich asked, how did he get hired when it says in our ordinance he has to hold at least a T4 and a W3 prior to appointment?
He had the W3.
There is no going around. It's at least prior.
He has a W3.
At least and
Which one?
He has one of the licenses. When he was hired, didn't he maintain one of the
Yes,
licenses?
Yes,
The
but he doesn't have a
T4 he didn't
T4.
have.
It
And
says
he was-
T4.
The mayor and council took the recommendation of the search committee to hire Bob Smith for the
All right.
director.
Now, he still doesn't have his T4. Yes?
T.
T4 and to my
T4,
knowledge-
yes. He still doesn't have his T4?
T4.
T, as in Tom.
Correct.
Yes, T4.
Correct.
All right. Is it true that we're paying him to go to class for his T4? The barrel?
Absolutely not.
We're not. Okay. And how many times has he failed his test? The taxpayers would like to know. 40,000 people.
I am sure of once, and that's all I'm sure of at this time. I will get back to you tomorrow and let you know how many times exactly.
Thank you.
I'm sure of once.
That's it.
Thanks, Rich. Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda item? There is an item here, 2015-82, which is a special permit for Robert Caramella to conduct a car show at the high school. He actually needs to go to the Board of Ed for this.
He needed a special event permit in accordance with the ordinance that was adopted by the mayor and council.
Yeah, but Terry, I
You
think...
did receive approval from the Board of Education.
He has that,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Any other comments? Being no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion. Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the public hearing be closed and the consent agenda resolutions be approved on roll call vote.
Roll call. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan?
Yes.
Kilpatrick? Yes. McGill?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes, with one comment. 21589, this is the RFP for the consultant for the radio communication system that the police are looking for. We did receive your letter, and I obviously know that you've been working with our IT person to bring this guy on, so we would like to move forward quickly once we approve tonight, so we will be able to install this radio system that's in dire need.
Novak?
So, yes.
Yes.
Rittenhouse?
Yes. Okay, committee reports, Administration and Finance, Councilwoman Novak.
Yes, I'd like to follow following minutes and reports to be received and filed. Board of Education minutes, March 3rd. Municipal Clerk's report, February 2015. Supervisors of Senior Citizen Activity Report for the month of February 2015.
Is there a second? Anything else, Councilwoman?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to have a committee, the committee for the pilot to meet with the Board of Education, be myself, Mr. McGill, and Mr. Buchanan.
I'd like Mr. Rittenhouse on that, being as he spent many years on the Board of Education. I'd like you to consider that.
This is the committee for the pilot.
That's going to meet with the board.
I assume there's no discussion on that. So we have no one with experience doing this, but that makes sense in a bizarro world. All right.
Mayor, can I have a repeat of that committee? That was Councilwoman Novak?
Novak, Buchanan, and McGill.
Is there anything else, Councilwoman?
Are we including Councilman Rittenhouse? Yeah,
That
you
would be a
can't,
quorum.
right.
I can only have three.
Okay, Mayor, sorry.
Also, Mayor, I'd just like to I'd just like to say that I want to thank everybody. It's been almost 7 weeks now that I broke my ankle, and the outpouring of support and love that I've received from my fellow people up here, the residents in the town, fraternal orders, different organizations through the town. I've received fruit baskets and flower arrangements and cards and mask cards, and my Facebook lit up when I first broke my ankle. I was feeling a little bit klutzy, and I didn't want everybody to know, but I tell you, I just want to thank everybody. And the update is the cast comes off on Thursday after 7 weeks, and I'll then get a ski boot on my foot. But I really want to thank everybody because I really didn't expect the amount of outpouring I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, Planning and Zoning, Councilman Buchanan.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes be received and filed. The Middlesex County Planning Board minutes of February 10th, 2015. The Sayreville Planning Board minutes of February 4th, 2015. Construction Officials Report for the month of February 2015. Zoning and Code Enforcement Report for the month of 2015. And the Fire Prevention Report for the month of February 2015.
Is there a second?
Second. Thank you.
Anything else, Councilman?
Yes, Mayor. The past few months, we've been getting nixles, and they've been about a fire or an accident or this and that. And today we really got a really nice nixle. It made my day. And I want to thank our public safety, our police department. What had happened was over the weekend, a 6-year-old girl was not doing well, and dispatcher Hurley helped the parents resuscitate the child. Then we had 3 officers, McGrath, Taylor, and Engelbrecht, 2 of which were new, go to the scene and assist as well. Our Sayreville Emergency Squad and Raritan Bay EMS, and the child is doing well, and I just want to congratulate them for their hard work and what they did for our residents. It was really great to see good news on the nixle report, so thank you, Chief, and to your department and the first aid. So other than that, progress.
Thank you. Public Works, Councilwoman Kilpatrick.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes and reports be received and filed. The Rent Leveling Board minutes of March 10th, 2015. The Public Works reports, Buildings and Grounds, Parks, Recycling, Roads, Garage Services, Sanitation, all for the month of February 2015.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything else, Councilwoman?
Yes, 2 things. I'll start off with an update on the Main Street trees and grates. I know... I'm
Beg your
sorry?
pardon?
Should we do that report during the regular agenda meeting?
If you like, I can do it during the
Is
regular
there,
agenda.
what is it that you wanted to do, Councilwoman?
I wanted to give an update on those, but I also had another one regarding the shade tree ordinance amendment, so if you'd like, I can do that
Is
now.
that an agenda item or a council item?
I believe...
Will it be for discussion?
Let me see, it's an agenda, this is an agenda item, yeah. This one we
Would it be all
can
right
do.
if we carried that over to the agenda portion where
That's
we
fine.
discuss the issues?
That's fine, thank you.
Is there anything else, Councilwoman?
No, that will be all, thank you.
Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes and reports be filed. The Recreation Director's Report of the month of February 2015.
Second. Anything else, Councilman?
Just one thing. Today, the Recreation Department launched a new website. It's called SayrevilleRec.com. And this new site will allow online registration for all the Recreation Department activities, information as far as the latest schedule. of events. It's pretty cool because it's very innovative. It allows the Recreation Department to not manually enter or receive checks as they used to do in the past. And it's very informative. This working with our new IT person. I'd like everybody to go take a look at it. Again, it's sayreville.com, and it actually went live today. So thank you to Jerry Yost and Tom Brackham from IT. This is one of the things I keep talking about to actually make things a little bit faster and better. And today's the first start of it. So I'd like to thank those gentlemen and invite everyone to take a look.
Rick, may I ask just
Go right ahead.
Is this the site that we will start being able to register, like for the Mommy and Me, the summer
Right.
programs?
Every recreation department activity is now available. You can download the application, do it online. We're actually going to put a computer in the recreation office, so when people come in, they don't have to fill out paperwork anymore. They will do it online there, or maybe they can do it from, a beach in South America if they like. That's a great use of
As long as they're
technology.
phoned in.
Okay?
Anything else?
No, sir.
There you go. Water and Sewer, Councilman Rittenhouse.
Thank you, Mayor. Move the following minutes reports be received and filed. Water and Sewer Director's Report for the month of February 2015.
Second.
Anything else, Arthur?
Yes. Last week, I believe it was on Wednesday, we had a major break in the sewer line at the Morgan pumping station. I want to commend our Water and Sewer Department for the work that they did on that. They were working 24 hours a day. It seems that the problem was that New Jersey Natural Gas installed this past fall, a gas line that ran in between Old Bridge Municipal Utilities and the Sayreville line. We feel that there was damage done to our line that was caused by that. The recommendation was made today. I had made this recommendation late last week when I went out there for our attorney to file a notice with New Jersey Natural Gas that we will be pursuing something, and I believe you've done that, Mr. DuPont?
Mr. Rittenhouse, I just got the memo today, so I'll be filing that tomorrow.
Okay.
Do we need a vote from the entire council before the attorney's authorized to file a suit?
Well, I'm not filing a suit. All I'm doing is filing a notice of claim.
All right. Doesn't that still require a vote of council?
Again, you can authorize me to file it. That's what you all are asking.
Arthur, anything else?
Do you want to put that in the form of a motion so we can just
Yeah, we can do a motion because if it goes into legal, then he would already be ready to go. I would make a motion that our counsel, Mr. DuPont, file not only a notice of claim, but also in the future, if there's legal action to be taken, that he be authorized to take that legal action against New Jersey Natural Gas.
Second.
And do this in conjunction with Old Bridge, who is also considering filing the suit.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilperson Buchanan?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Rittenhouse?
Yes.
Anything else, Arthur?
No, that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety, Council President McGill.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the following minutes and/or reports be received and filed. Number one, the Municipal Court Administrator's Report for the month of February 2015, the Police Chief's Report for the month of February 2015, and the Board of Health Registrar and County Reports for the month of February 2015.
Second.
Anything else, Council President?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. What Denny had brought up about the three police officers and Dispatcher Hurley. Once again, we see municipal employees stepping up, way up, and a child's life was saved. And I am aware of the hard work that Water and Sewer put into that water main break during that cold weather. Once again, they took care of the job, they took care of us. I commend them all. Thank you. Just one other thing, Mayor. I'm sorry. I would like to submit the name of Shane Schaefer and Raffanello as the new ABC attorney, and I have also given everyone a resume on them. Shane, Schaefer, and Raffanello.
Why would that stand in the way?
That's the resume. Everyone up
When
here
did
has
we
gotten
get the
the
resume?
It should be, yeah,
Terry, was that resume in the packet?
we just passed it out.
Well, by all
We just
means,
missed
that's a qualifier right there.
There you go. He's the master of the, he's the master of the one answer. Got any more extras then? Yes, ma'am.
Did we have an RFP for an ABC? Were there any other respondents? Is there any qualification for this? And what's the qualifier on this firm? Is this a new firm? Was this part of the original respondents?
I don't believe so.
No,
Ah,
this is a new
well,
firm.
even more of a reason to appoint them tonight.
I still don't have a resume.
It's heading your way, Skip.
I would recommend that.
I guess the other side of the aisle doesn't get resumes.
Well, Arthur. You'll be accused of being unkind and unfair.
I know.
So, I would recommend that this at least be discussed, but that would be my opinion. Before appointment, perhaps in the agenda session, but there seems to be a rush on tonight.
Can I ask why we're changing ABC attorneys? President McGill?
Thank you. We've taken a good look, and we feel that they are
Who's
more
we?
than qualified.
Who's we?
Myself and safety, public safety.
Really?
Yes.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Do you know that you have a fan club out there?
You know, I think you do too.
I make a motion.
So what do the five people want to do tonight?
Need a second, please?
I had a motion. I need a second, please.
Second.
Is there a roll call?
Can we have discussion?
Arthur, please.
know.
That would be normal.
I know.
But go ahead.
Mr. McGill, was Dan Frankel in on these discussions?
No, he wasn't.
I believe our code of ethics and everything we have at the beginning of the year say that most things are supposed to go through the business administrator. And he should be the person, that's the one Mary has us adopt every year and yells about. He should be involved or at least know about this happening.
I don't recall Mrs. Novak yelling about anything.
Yeah. So I don't understand why, if we're paying the business administrator, we're giving him a raise, and everybody else is doing his job. I just don't understand this.
Mayor, may I?
By all means.
I don't know what the heck you're talking about, Art. We make appointments on the first of the year without consulting the business administrator at all. So, I mean, that's ludicrous. Secondly, what Mr. Rittenhouse was referring to is there are rules of order of our conduct up here as council people. We approve that every year. It's not something that I insist we approve. It's handed out and it's voted on every year. I just insist if we're going to approve it, that we should live by it. If we don't want to live by it, we shouldn't approve it. That's what I'm talking about, a code of conduct, Arthur. Thank you.
Well put. You have a second, Mayor? Do we have a second?
I have a second.
Are there any other comments before this 5-1 vote goes on? Okay. Terry, roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan? Yes. Kilpatrick?
Yes.
McGill?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Rittenhouse?
In a second, I'm still reading over. I want to see. Do we have save me some time, how much is this person going to be charging us?
Do they have any experience?
Mr. McGill, do we know
I mean, I assume they
how
have a
much we're going to be
JD.
paying?
No, I do not right now, Mr. Rittenhouse.
So we're going to approve something else without
We
knowing
sure
how
are.
much it is?
Yes, we are. We just did.
Well, that was well discussed and well thought out with the Public Safety Committee. There's no price
Okay.
and there's no experience, so by all means, hire them.
No, based on my comments, based on the fact that we have no clue as to how much we're going to be paying for this. It's nice to be able to write your own check.
Some people are lucky enough, working for the prisons, things like that.
Sorry? The vote is 5-1.
I'm shocked. With that, is there anything else, Council President? Anything else, Council President?
No, Mayor.
Okay. With that, I did want to let everyone know that we're saying goodbye to a very, very dear friend, Martha Hartle, who's moving with her daughter down to Maryland. Martha, I think, is close to being well, I can't, Vicki, you'll have to help me pronounce the word, centenarian? 100, she's several years off from it. She has all her faculty. She is well poised. She is perhaps one of the most charming people I've ever had the pleasure of speaking with and interacting with. I think, Art, well, a gentleman never discusses a lady's age, but she's as beautiful now as she was when she graduated high school. I want to thank Martha. She was a tireless volunteer in our borough, particularly at the senior center, and I wish her Godspeed, and I hope she looks forward to the next part of her life, enjoying it with her daughter and her grandchildren in Maryland. So Martha, bon voyage, safe voyage, and we hope that you adjust well to the state of Maryland. That being said, that did create an opening on the Planners Commission at the Senior Center, and they have said emphatically that they will forward a recommendation to the mayor and council to fill that slot. And let me repeat the word, emphatically. This is their committee, their senior center. They run it, and they have always run it, and they want to continue to run it. The tradition has been they send the recommendations to the mayor and council, who promptly appoint their recommendations. Of course, that's always subject to change. That being said, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. Are there any questions or comments for the public portion? Let me get our boys in blue first. Doug, come on. Yeah. Tom, you're a gentleman. Come on up.
Thomas Bashada, 17 Green Hill Avenue, Parlin, New Jersey. Mrs. Hartle was my neighbor for several years at my previous address. Wonderful woman. I wish her the best. That's all I can say. First of all, let me start off. Did anyone have any problems getting the website that I told you to call up from the Philadelphia Inquirer? Has anybody found that? If you don't, I have copies of it. You want them? Good.
Why don't you give it to Terry, Tom?
Okay. I don't know how many I'm going to give out, but if you need more, these are about the article that I spoke to at the last meeting from the Philadelphia Inquirer. If you'll pass them out, please. For the general public to know, the planning board approved the point. Did the council get a copy of this at all from the planning board? No. Okay. Well, you missed a good meeting. That's all I can tell you. First of all, let's start off. One of the things that bothered me is this pilot program that we're going to start again here. Pilot right now, I don't know if this has been approved by the council yet or not. Okay. The initial pilot is supposed to be $30 million given to the town. $19 million is going to go to the school system. I would recommend that this be renegotiated, and I'll give you several reasons why. First of all, let's start in 2017 and 18. They're going to start building the apartments, townhouses. Out of the 576 townhouses, 494 of them are going to be 3-bedroom townhouses, okay? So when you have 3 bedrooms, you're definitely going to have at least 2 children in that household, okay? Now, if you take 494 times 2, that's 988 students going into the school system. Now, the other 82 townhouses are going to be 2 bedrooms, so you're going to have at least 1 child coming out of that. All right, now let's go with the rentals. According to the builder, Mr. O'Neill, 40% of the apartments that are going to be built, which are 1,424, they're going to be 2-bedroom apartments. Now, 40% of 1,424 comes out to be 570. And add the 3 numbers together, 988, 82, and 570, gives you a projected, a rough estimate of about 1,640 students that will be coming into the school district. As present day cost, which is about $11,000 per student, times 1,624, you're looking at $17,864,000 at today's numbers, okay? That's just today. And that's going to be, this along with the current budget, which is almost $89 million, recurring cost, now 17.864 million out of 19 million, that only goes for, what, a year and a couple days? It doesn't make sense. You know, I've been in town all my life. I enjoy being in this town. You know, we've got to start thinking what the hell's going to happen in this town. You know, one of the planning board members says, yeah, this is the first contractor that came in and it's going to give a pilot money back to the town. But let me say this here. We're going to lose money. If you calculate the cost per students that are going to come into the district and how many years it's going to recuperate. Now, the issue is the pilot based upon residential and commercial, or is it just based upon commercial? Because that puts a different light on it. What I would ask the council to do is have a meeting with the committee, to Sarah, and find out how this pilot is going to operate. Because the bottom end...
Tom, Sarah doesn't issue a pilot. Only the governing body issues the pilot.
I know, but they negotiated, am I correct?
No.
All right, then, like I said, you know, we've got to start looking, because what's going to happen is we're going to get backdoored with taxes, because we may be okay on the proportion of municipal tax, but then the school tax is going to come to bite us. And you know, these are things, and we're not taking in, like, let's just say it has 1,000 students. That's another school or 2 that has to be added. You're going to have to add on to the high school again, which only has a capacity of 2,200. You're going to have to add on to the middle school. You know, I don't think the taxpayers in this town want more referendums and have their taxes banged again, you know. You know, it comes to a point in time where, you know, we all pay our fair share. Well, Kaplan's paying his fair share for Town Lake. He's paying his fair share with the residents that are coming into Lemire. I mean, these are things that we're going to have to look at here. And I wish the council would do this, you know. Start thinking about the future. You know, the big picture is not all about what you're going to save. The big picture should be is what's it going to cost us, because there's always a cost involved with this. The other thing that was mentioned, the gentlemen were here for the Main Street bypass. With this program that was put out, this bypass is actually going to come right into part of the project here of the point. And to me, it looks like it's going to be a lot of traffic. You know, you may have a straight shot from, we'll say, River Road, but once you get into this this point over here, it's going to be a little troublesome, I say. And the other question I have with the development here, I'd recommend, Mr. Mayor, you got a copy of this, didn't you? And Mr. Rittenhouse, you got a copy because you attended the movie? Yeah, that's what it was, a movie.
I think I gave mine to you, Tom. But
I appreciate it.
We can get.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's parcel A here. You know, this is on the map here, but it's not part of the development here.
Parcel A is a nature preserve.
Well, no, according to what I understand,
Well, you had A, which was on the Route 35 side.
Correct.
B, which was the old drive-in side, and C, which is the largest of the three parcels where the majority of the development is going to happen.
See, what I understood, I don't know if you can see this here, this is what I understood what Mr. O'Neill was talking about, this area down here heading towards the steel mill side. That's what I understood would be the 12 acres of solar farm, and the other acreage would be for a natural preserve. Maybe I'm wrong, that's the assumption.
What is it?
Let me take that assumption away.
Tom, I don't know I'm not following your question.
No, I'm just saying, to me, you're saying that parcel A, the one extreme to the right of this page, will be for the...
Well, now, you have a whole... There were originally three parcels of land, A, B, and C.
Correct.
A became a nature preserve that's on the east side of Route 35.
Correct. That's what you're saying.
B is the drive-in. Am I getting it right, Jay, or am I getting the letters reversed?
No, that's correct. The east side of Route 35 is parcel A, which is the nature preserve, as you're calling it. That's open space. That's already been remediated. That's been developed. So
is that where the solar farm is going to go also?
You're correct with the solar farm. That's going to be on the westerly side of this site where the old landfill on the National Ed property was. That's what Mr. O'Neill indicated.
And that's going to be ramified also?
Yes, that's where the
Okay. Now, how many acres is it? How many acres is this piece of property? I'm sorry for everyone if you don't have a copy of this here, but you know, you've got to attend the meeting and you'll find out.
Overall, you're in excess of 400 acres.
Right, but this parcel over here that I thought was supposed to be a preserve also.
I don't recall the acreage, but that was going to be a combination. It's the old landfill site. It was going to remain undisturbed with exception to the solar panels.
Okay. Again, you know, I'd look at the negotiations that have to go on here because, like I said, you know, just coming into the school district.
Tom, you understand that many times a pilot program, the borough gets more money from a pilot than they would get if they just went through straight taxation. It's a way of enticing development or redevelopment, and it's also like if you go down Journey Mill Road to any of the power plants, if Joe Cupps went down there and just taxed them on the structures they had, they're basically large Quonset huts with $1 billion worth of generating equipment inside. We cannot tax the equipment. We can only tax the structure. Here ago, we put in pilot programs which pays us far more money than any straight taxation would. So the taxation or the amount of money coming from pilots, theoretically, will be far greater than if we just went the normal route and did taxation. On top of that, it invited the development. Now, the O'Neill family, last time I talked to them, they had about $100 million into the purchase of the property and the remediation. So the article in the Philadelphia Inquirer, over the years, Mr. O'Neill Sr. has called me about different things I might read in the paper or in the news, different litigations they're involved with. My experience is that it's not unusual for developers and large developers to be in a series of litigation with lenders, with all kinds of people on a continuous basis. It seems to be pretty standard fare. That being said, to say, you know, and I remember the one incident where he told me, I forget who did what to whom, but it's an old strategy. You know, the guy sues you for $10, you sue him for $10 million. You countersue him for $10 million. You know, there's nothing new in that strategy, and it was nothing that I was going to get involved in. Now, for the 16 years that I've been mayor, I've met with a number of different people with different ideas about the National Ed project. I've had governors call me asking me to meet with people, which I've done. I met with NASCAR. Governor McGreevey contacted me. NASCAR was looking for a site in Metro New York. I met with them. They wanted to fly me around the country on their jet to meet other mayors where they had NASCAR tracks. But they didn't want to pay anything. The whole thing was, we're NASCAR and you'll benefit from the peripheral business. And I said, fellas, I said, I have people right now that are going to pay the borough of Sayreville $20 million a year in taxes. Please redo your business model and we'll have the second meeting. I don't need to fly around the country. I do that for a living anyway. Of course, in those days, you couldn't call in. But long story short, you know, we've gone through an awful lot of people. Sarah's gone through a lot of people. These were the people that came in. They were real. They had the finance. They had the interest. They had the drive. They were qualified, and they were selected to do the development. And it's a fine plan. 16 years ago, that property was paying the borough of Sayreville $300,000 a year in property tax. As this project gets completed, it will be in excess of $20 million a year. So there's a trade going on, Tom. And what I ask people to do is to say, overall, is this beneficial to the borough? Now, we've lost the employment at DuPont. We've lost it at Hercules, National Lead, Sunshine Biscuits. We've lost a lot of employment. So the town is changing. It's changing into a commuting town, a bedroom community, and this will be a part stabilizer for our tax rate. You know, what we lost in DuPont, Hercules, National Lead, Sunshine Biscuits, we will hopefully have some type of adjustment with the National Lead project.
See, I can understand if you're going to do a pilot for commercial, but when you have residential involved, like we did down at Club A, with not a dime coming to the school system, although they're going to give you $19 million.
Well, there is a negotiation. Arthur spearheaded it last year. There's no law that says where the money, how the money is divided on a pilot. Generally, you know, because the borough council controls that, they've said, well, it's better in our bank account than anybody else's bank account. But Arthur spearheaded this project last year where he says, wait a minute, let's be a little bit more fair and equitable about this and share the pilot program with the school system. That's really, if I had a recommendation to you, that would be the recommendation, to follow up on how the pilot is divided between the school and the borough.
Well, you know, I brought that issue both to the council and to the school board about it.
Well, good work.
But, well, again, one other thing that I wanted to mention is that when we, not we, but when whoever committee or member of government here did this, they recommended that we have housing units in there. According to Mr. O'Neill, a single-family apartment is going to rent for $1,700 a month, and roughly, and a two-bedroom is going to rent for over $2,000 a month. Now, in order to qualify, I mentioned this at the planning board meeting, you were there. You got a clerk working there in $10 an hour.
They're not going to live there.
That's what I mean, but the original proposal, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, the original proposal that was told to the people of this town is that the people who could work there could also live there, but they won't be able to afford it.
The numbers in central New Jersey are not working in favor of the hourly worker. As far as I know, anywhere in central Jersey, it's a difficult marketplace for first-time home buyers. There's a shortage. So supply and demand kicks in and it drives it up. Tom, I will tell you this, for many years I told everybody that came with a development plan that we would not entertain a residential component, and every developer told me that it doesn't work, and that what we were looking for, which was essentially a new center of town, vibrant with commercial, retail, restaurants, all that stuff, they said if you don't have a residential component, you end up having a ghost town at night. It's be like Metro Park. You just have a ghost town at night. And since the office market was soft to non-existent, there had to be a compromise. So in order to get the things that we're getting, and in order to make the whole financial package work, and to make the whole development work so that it wasn't a ghost town at night, you needed the residential component. And that's been proven around the country with similar developments.
Well, just one thing to remember, the more people, well, first of all, the infrastructure that we have is not going to be able to accumulate.
Tom,
Washington,
when you were a boy, how many people lived in Sayreville?
probably about 10,000. I was born in '49, so that'll give you an idea.
Okay.
We knew everybody in
So
town.
when Park Village and Main Street and Sheffield, that was the largest growth spurts in Sayreville, and it added a lot of residents. We survived. We brought in. If you don't bring in new blood, you're not going to make it.
No, I don't disagree with you on that, but the point is that when you're going to put 2,000 housing units down there, okay, first of all, Washington Road, Main Street, cannot handle the traffic on a daily basis right now. Just hear me, please. Second of all, we're going to have to provide more services, and services take more people hired by the borough, and, you know.
Tom, if they're paying $20 million a year in taxes, that we're going to give them some services. But all that being said, what's our choice? Our choice could be we would have nothing, and our residential taxes, not having an industrial base to subsidize, we would be slowly moving to becoming the town that strictly survives on residential property tax without a commercial component, which would make in a very short amount of time, would make the town extraordinarily expensive to live in. The second thing is, 25, 28 years ago, they were closing down schools in Sayreville, and all the reports at the time was for a declining school-age population. What happened in the meantime is a lot of young people got married, maybe at a little later date than was anticipated, and they started doing what young people have done since the beginning of time. They started having families. So most of our increase in school-age population happened because we had generational changes in our neighborhood where people grew older, they retired, they moved out, or they passed away, and a young family bought the home and had a family. And that's the nature of life.
No, I understand that. It's just that, you know, a lot of people, I'll include myself, are in our golden years. I don't want to have to move out of town, you know. That's
Hopefully this will help. It's not going to reduce taxes, but it'll give it a balance. It'll replace that which we lost from the manufacturing base. That's the hope.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Are there any other questions or comments? Stanley?
Stanley Droll, 121 Bezette Street. I came up here today because I watched the last meeting on television, and I wanted to discuss the proposed public works facility that was talked about quite a bit the last meeting. I came here almost exactly a year ago because I looked at my record and had the same discussion last year, and this has been going on about 12 years if I look back on this public works facility. First of all, I'll go on record saying that we don't need a public works facility. I think that's part of the problem. We do need a borough maintenance facility, and I supported that many years ago. But a couple of things I want to point out that came out, I think, wrong in that last meeting that were not factual. Number one, you need a salt dome. That's been discussed for about 10 years. When Jeff Bertrand was working on it, I was on the committee for Public Works. We were going to put it at Fort Grumpy at one point. And that was the cheapest option. In fact, Jeff even had a cheaper option that he looked at, but I was leaning more towards the better one, the more permanent one that would have cost a little more, but I think it would have been a better one. But the point was, Fort Grumpy had the space. Fort Grumpy does meet all the requirements. There's been a rumor that it doesn't meet DEP requirements, which is poor baloney. I still have the paperwork from when I was on the committee. The only requirement, and it actually says it's not required for Tier A municipal de-icing storage facilities, but should be considered when putting its facility, and that was being 200 feet from a body of water. Actually, that's 800 feet from a body of water. That's the only requirement that even came close. And again, it's not even close to the 200-foot limit. So Fort Grumpy was the cheapest method or the cheapest option we had, and we could have done it already, but election was coming up and nobody wanted to be portrayed as the big spender of taxpayer money. So my recommendation again is, we've been discussing forever, if we really do need a salt dome, we should just do the plan at Fort Grumpy because it was the cheapest one and easiest to do right away. One other point though, in the state paperwork, it said work with neighboring municipalities and other public complexes to try to construct joint use facilities. We keep talking about working with the county and what a big problem is. I'm not really sure what that is. I've heard it for 12 years, but it would make sense to do it with somebody else, but if we can't, for whatever reason, again, go back to Grumpy. So I want to comment at the Salt Dome. The second one, and I heard a lot of things discussed about this municipal garage. Eddie Streck was up here. He's got experience. Although my experience was in the military, and people thought that was a bunch of baloney and laughed at it when I brought it up several years ago, I did run motor pools that were much larger than this one here. And I guess the U.S. Army is kind of a joke to a lot of people. Unfortunately, we managed to win wars anyway and run a lot of high-tech equipment. My motor pool with 250 heavy vehicles, both tracked and wheeled vehicles, I actually went and looked at my records. We had 250 vehicles. In Garrison, we had 8 bays, maintenance bays, for 250 vehicles. Of those 8 bays, not one bay could take the larger armored vehicles inside the bay. It was like that for about 30 years, from what I understand historically. What did we do? Like Eddie said, we worked on the vehicles. If we could pull the front end in, we did in the winter. We worked in the desert, we had no place to work except outside often. If we had to pull a pack on a heavy vehicle, we did motor transfers outdoors all the time. Now, I'm not saying we should subject our mechanics to that kind of work except in emergencies, but I would like to see the mechanics get a decent facility of some type, but again, a maintenance facility. And one of the things that was brought up is that the mechanics said, the implication was we have too many mechanics. We should put that aside because we looked with the council years ago, and not many years ago, went to 2 or 3 public maintenance organizations, fleet maintenance facilities, and the number of vehicles per mechanic in Sayreville is much higher than any recommendation of the 3. So our mechanics actually are working per number of vehicles is higher than recommended. So our maintenance facility, being old and inadequate, just kind of slows us down. So what I'm saying on the maintenance facility is we need one, but what is the proper maintenance facility we can afford? What we want and what we need are 2 different things. Of course, we all would like to have the platinum facility. I would too, but is it necessary? Could we afford it? Looking back on some of the council meetings on television, when we had the animal problem, a few $1,000s we couldn't afford. When I asked about cleaning the roads, sometimes the garbage on the roads, we don't have money. When it's 10 grand or 20 grand, it seems like the borough's broke. But when we talk about a $16 million public works facility, all of a sudden we've got all this money that's available. As somebody who lives here in Sayreville, was on the council, I support the idea of a better maintenance facility, but why don't we talk about a maintenance facility? Not this big public works facility that's got to be everything under the sun. I don't think Sayreville can afford it. Tom just talked about all the school kids are going to be coming in here in a couple of years. You know, this town isn't rich. I just drove down to Tangletown after the storm. How many of you been up in Tangletown lately? I got a Jeep with 18-inch tires, and I almost blew the tires out in Tangletown. My street's one of the better ones in Sayreville, supposedly, but I just looked at it now that the snow melted. I got cracks all over the roads. There are big hunks starting to come out of my road, and mine's one of the top tier in Sayreville, evidently, by the road maintenance schedule. So my point is, we've got a really crummy infrastructure in Sayreville. We all know we got potholed streets everywhere. We need a maintenance facility. We need a salt dome, but we don't need the massive public works facility. I'd rather see the mechanics get a good facility and do maintenance. We can park vehicles outside. Of the 250 vehicles I had, I parked 5 indoors. And they were all high-tech classified electronics vans. That's why they were inside. You can operate vehicles. I think Councilman McGill mentioned that. Maintenance facilities are stored outside. I went down Route 1 last week. I think it's Public Service or one of those companies, Jersey Central. They got all their vehicles parked in an open bay outside, everything. So, again, we should look at doing what's smart. Which leads to the last point, which I brought up last time. For some reason, this property that DuPont donated to us several years ago seems to be burning a hole in somebody's pocket. There's a lot of vacant commercial space in Sayreville, industrial type space. I just took a ride again, looked around. You go to Hartle Street. I looked on the web. I think it might be, who owns the warehouses up on Bordentown? Mr. Gillette. I went and looked at those facilities. I didn't actually go in, but I pulled in, the bays were open. And as somebody who's worked in maintenance, those would be very good facilities for a mechanic to work in. I brought this up, and I even spoke to Councilwoman Kilpatrick. The modern way you do business is modular type lift facilities. The military goes in now, gets a warehouse in a foreign country, because I've been there and done it. We get an old bombed out building or a warehouse. We come in with modular lift equipment, modular storerooms, and we got a top-notch maintenance bay running in 30 days for a cheap price. So I hate coming here every year and having to talk about this public works facility. Now the land you want to put it on is what really drives me nuts, that DuPont property. That property was donated as open space. It was number 3 on the open space plan, and it talked about how it was such a great buffer for the well fields and all that stuff. Now, the way the deed was evidently written, there is probably a loophole in there to do it. And having been on all the meetings with Jay, with DuPont, the reason there was a loophole in there was because we once talked about putting possibly an outdoor pool or some type of a outdoor toilet facility, whatever, like bathrooms like at a park. So to use that opening to now justify a public works facility, I think is a big stretch. I'm just going to quote, again, it's kind of interesting to read quotes from people years later. Here's the Suburban, 2005. DuPont looks to give Sayreville 120 acres. Lanier Nature Preserve will be kept mostly as open space. Let's see, who do we have here? Okay, Stanley Droll, quoted, and again, honestly quoted by the newspaper, using a small piece for the purposes of a public swimming pool, although nothing was planned. I still stand by that. George Osai, who represented DuPont, he said the donation is being offered on the basis that the borough does not use it for any major development. And then the next one's actually in quotes. We'd like it to remain a nature preserve, Osai said. I've heard of possible ball field expansion or maybe some nature trails and benches. Sounds pretty clear to me what the intent was. And last of all, Mayor O'Brien's still here. On behalf of the people of Sayreville, I gratefully accept it. It's another 120 acres for our open space inventory. Well, I guess it's either open space inventory or Sayreville has got some special way of looking at open space. I guess we can call the Sayreville Borough Garage part of our open space inventory. We can call the borough building here open space if that's what you want to do, but I don't think it's the intent. So I'm gonna just finish up by saying somebody who lived here, came back to live here. Sayreville is a lot nicer than a lot of local towns. I went to Redison recently, which I hadn't done in a long time. You go to Redison, and it is a dump. It's warehouses, it's houses, it's apartments. it's like you're driving through some never-ending mix of warehouses and buildings and houses. Sayreville still has some nice wooded areas. It breaks up the town, gives it a little character. So I can't force anybody to do anything, but I'll say one thing, having fought to get this land, I will do everything in my power to get the people who appreciate this town to come out and fight any effort to destroy that nature preserve. Not when you have public available possible places to put a garage that are already built and commercially available. It just takes a little effort to go out and ask. That's all you got to do is start looking around. I bet there are a lot of property owners right now would like a long-term contract with the borough. So thank you.
Thank you, Stanley.
If I may, Mayor?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Sam. We did have a great discussion, and I just wanted to clear up a few things. I think that a lot of people here, because this project has been something that's been discussed not just for 12 years, but I think as 20. So individuals that have been involved in the council or been involved in this process years and years back are immediately thinking that my intentions and my plan or my vision or my ideas for bringing this up are exactly the same that persisted 20 years ago. It's not necessarily the case. I hear a lot of discussion that we're going to use this property, we're going to use DuPont. That, no land has been acquired, no properties have been decided on. As a matter of fact, the actual public works facility, it's not even on this year's budget. It's been pushed to the following year because this is going to take time. I'm not looking, and when I spoke to Mr. Drawl, I've lived here my whole life. The last thing I want to do is to see any space that was earmarked or were in discussions to be used for a certain purpose to then be changed and used for something else. I'm a lover of, I hunted since I was 12 years old. There were a lot of, I think, I don't know, maybe perceived ideas about the kind of person that I am. Trust me, I've grown up, my father worked in a sheet metal shop. That's where I grew up when I was a kid. From the time I was 8 years old, I drove back and forth and I got to operate big machines, Weedomatic operator and things like that. So I think the assumption that I didn't know what I was talking about when I walked into the garage and saw what I saw, my father taught me, you're a girl, but you can do anything a boy can do. And I wasn't allowed to even get my driver's license, so I knew how to change a tire, check the oil, and do all that. So I'm not this prissy thing that walked into the garage going, oh my God, there's oil. No, that's not how I operate. I grew up in Laurel Park. Anybody up here, when we were discussing the property, I voiced concerns about using the property across from Laurel Park. That's where I grew up, Cedar Terrace. I have concerns when you put any type of public facility, public works facility, near baseball fields where kids are. My own daughter, I'm trying to figure out how the hell we've been sitting here for so long with our public works garage right next to volleyball courts, playground, and a park without somebody, God forbid, getting hurt. I wouldn't let my own daughter come over there with me when we had snow because there's no way that these guys can see a little tiny kid with these huge trucks. I want to make it clear, this is the beginning stages of something, and I'm open to listen to anything. I was thrilled to hear pool. Trust me, you have no ideas. I have 3 years up here before either you guys vote me out or keep me on. I got it. Pool? Let's go spray park. Let's go. There's plenty of things we can talk about over there. I'm not looking to build the Taj Mahal of public work facilities or whatever you want to call it. I'm looking to get something that is going to help our infrastructure, get our town functioning more efficiently, help our mechanics be able to work and operate on machinery that we have, and do it so that way the holes and the potholes that we run across every single day are fixed quickly. That way our roads look clean and neat. I'm not looking to break the bank here. So whatever happened years past, I think the public works facility became political fodder. I remember reading that, I agree with you, shared services would be great. But I think we saw that approached with Mr. Henry and the idea of using a public works facility in conjunction with South Amboy, and didn't that become like big campaigning that Mr. Henry was working in cahoots with his brother and that was going to cost us all kinds of money. I'm not here to play that game. I just want something that's going to work, and I appreciated you taking the time to call me and talk to me. But Jay and I think Dan, I'm not looking to ram this through immediately. I want to do what's smart and what's right for the people and for the finances that we have. And I'll talk to anybody that wants to give me information.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I just want to explain why I came up here and why I come up every year, because luckily Mr. Streck comes up here. I don't feel like coming here every weekend. I don't feel that well sometimes, so I don't like to come here. But I'm glad the cameras got in here because at least I watched it on television. But I'll explain why I come here and why other people come here. Those of us who have been around here the last 10 years have seen many instances where something comes up that night and it's a done deal. And that's what worries me is, like I said, you want me to bring the troops out, I'll start making phone calls. I'll get the tree huggers, the guys who walk the dogs, the old guys from Laurel Park who walk out there. If that's what it takes, we'll go. I'll get Tom Bishada to help me. We'll get 200 people in here if that's what it needs, but why do that if you don't have to, is my point. But what we fear is, honestly, I've become a little distrustful from watching things work. People will say, don't worry about it, and then I'll be away for a 2-week vacation, and I'll come back, and Eddie will call me up and say, hey, Stanley, guess what? They already decided to build a garage on the DuPont property. And it's happened before in this town. That's why people are leery.
No, I
So I'll take your word on that, because so far you haven't given me a reason not to trust you, but I hope you know where we're coming from. It's not me speaking. I'm speaking on behalf of quite a few people, and I'll bring them here if I have to, but I don't want to if I don't have to.
Listen, I appreciate that. Jay can tell you, I asked him for plans. I wanted to get the history of what this whole process and project was. One of the first things I saw on the one piece that you were talking about, the DuPont property, I think I asked you, Jay, or I'm pretty sure it was Jay, where did the basketball fields and all those things, or basketball courts that were included in that initial plan, where did that come from? So I'm not a person that is just looking to jump the gun here. I reached out to Dan. I said, Dan, can we find out about any of the deed restrictions, what the situation is regarding the DuPont property? I'd rather have all the information and make informed decisions.
I'm gonna just finish up on a deed, because this has been beaten to death the last 2 years about the deed. Again, it's New Jersey. You know, it was written because we wanted to possibly build a pool. You know, you could find a way to build anything. You could probably build a skyscraper if you can get the votes in New Jersey. But I'm going to end on this. I watched television this weekend, the political shows. I like to watch them on Sunday. And I was thinking as borough council and coming here tonight, there was a statement made about some national level politician said something this past week that was pretty controversial. And they said, one person said it right. Every day in Washington, D.C., I see a politician who has done something unethical, wrong for the taxpayer, and able to say with a straight face, I broke no law. So that's what I say about the deed restriction.
Yeah, I just wanted the info on it so I can make an informed decision. Thanks, Stanley.
Are there any other Doug, did you want to make a statement?
Doug Gumprick on behalf of Sayreville PBA Local 98, 1000 Main Street. Mayor, I come before you because I had a little issue with finance or payroll, and at this point I would prefer to speak in closed, so there's no embarrassments out here, if that would be possible. If it's not possible and we have to move forward with...
What would it be under, Doug? You can, Counselor?
It's only personnel contract negotiation.
It would be under personnel.
I think he's talking about a specific person, personnel, so it would be closed.
I wouldn't suggest that you bring up that specific person's name unless we properly rights notice him.
Okay.
If you'd like to talk to me after the meeting, we can certainly talk about any...
Doug, there's going to be a break between this meeting and the agenda meeting, so speak to the attorney. And listen, it's at least under my watch, I like it transparent. So let's see if we can get you in and get these questions answered for you.
Okay, very well.
All right?
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, being no other questions or comments, I'll take a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. Second the motion, Mayor.
Arthur?
No, I
Arthur?
Arthur? Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Is there, hey, before I adjourn this and we go to the public portion, really so we don't have to move everything into the little room, is everybody staying here for the agenda portion? As former Councilman Drawl said, a lot of times there's action here that when there's the least amount of people, so I actually encourage people to stay. So if I have enough people, then we can have the agenda meeting here. We have a lot of people that are staying. I see a show of hands. All right, we're staying here. We're going to take a 5 or 10 minute break. So with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? About 5 or 10 minutes, everybody.